Hello beautiful people, good morning, afternoon or evening wherever you are. It's Winnie here again in another video, and in today's video we are going to be learning how to make this very elegant office wear. The only difference is that it's not going to be with a double keyhole, but every other part of the style you are going to learn it. If this is what you would like to learn, keep on watching, like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out anytime I upload a new video. Without too much talking, let's get to the honey of this video. Let's go.
Love you. Hey beauty, welcome to my channel.
This tutorial is going to be for the drafting, while the part 2 is going to be for the sewing. So what I'm doing here is that I'm creating my block, and then I used my bust measurement divided by 4 plus extra 4 inches to create my block. And then for the length, I am marking out my waist measurement plus 2 inches. This is just for you to know the amount of paper that you need, so that the paper will not just be wide on the table, and it will be much easier for you to work with. Alright, so this is my block that I've created, and I'm going to cut that out for a more minimal paper and easy work area. So once this is done, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to mark out my vertical measurements, which are the bust point measurements, my bust point measurement, and then my under bust measurement and my waistline measurement. So when I'm measuring my bust point measurement, I'm going to be adding ½ inch to that, to the actual bust point. If your bust point is 12, you are going to be measuring 12.5. the under bust is 15, and I'm marking 15.5. This is because I like all my allowances to be on the paper, so that when I'm cutting, I'm just going to cut it straight. I'm not going to be adding any other allowance. So now I'm marking out my neck width of 3 inches now, and then my shoulder measurement is 8 inches. I marked 16 inches divided by 2, that's 8 inches plus ½ inch, 8.5. And then from that point I went ahead to mark my armhole depth measurement, and that will also serve as my chest line. What I'm doing now is just that I'm trying to make my lines accurate. Alright, I'm just marking it so that I can make my lines accurate. So from that point, I'm going to mark out 1 inch downwards for my shoulder slope, and I'm going to connect that to my 3-inch mark. So once that is done, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to create my my bust span measurement. So the bust span of the client I'm working with is 9 divided by 2, that's 4.5, but I'm going to be marking 5 inch. Remember that I want it to have all the allowances on the paper, so I marked 5 inches up to the bust point area. And then because it's a shoulder dart, you're going to measure out your shoulder and divide that by 2, whatever you have there, and then you're going to connect that to your bust point like so. So once that is done, the next thing I'm going to do is to take out my darts. On the waistline, I took 1 inch on both sides. On the under bust, I also took 1 inch on both sides, and then I'm going to connect that with a straight line. Then I'm going to use a curve to connect it to the bust point. I just went down from the bust point by ½ inch, and then I'm connecting it with a curve. That ½ inch is because I don't want any sharp edge. I just want it to enter smoothly, so that's why we are coming down by ½ inch. So once that is done, to create your dart on the shoulder, I'm just going to go up by 4 inches. But before then, I am going to mark out I just want to draw a tentative armhole so that we can understand better what I am doing. So I'm just trying to draw a tentative armhole. This is not going to be my final armhole. It's just for you to understand what we are doing, so that it can be clear enough. So now what I'm doing next is that I'm taking my neck depth of 3 inches, and then I am going to connect that with a curve. I've just connected that with a curve, and once that is done, I'm going to take my dart on the shoulder area. So I took 1 inch on both sides. So at this point, you can decide to join it all the way up from the bust point, but me, I don't want to do it like that because I want this upper bust area to serve as a guide for me when cutting my bustier, and I also want it to be snatched at that area. That is why I took half inch on both sides at that area before connecting it to the shoulder, and then from that point I'm going to connect it to the bust point again. All right, so make sure that there are no sharp edges. Try to blend your lines in, and this part that I'm shading out is the part that we are going to be cutting off, which is our dart. So now, in order for us not to have any shortage, it is advisable and compulsory to add back what you took out for that. So I'm doing that now. I removed 2 inches at the upper part. I returned the 2 inches at the midpoint. I measured out what I have there and I marked it, and at the upper bust area also, that small line that we created, I'm extending it right now so you can understand. So that small line that we created, what I have on the dart, I'm also returning it back to it, and then now I'm going to draw my final armhole measurement. But before we do that, I'm going to mark out my bust measurement divided by 2. Whatever you have from where the dart starts from, you will jump it and continue your measurement, and then you add your 2 inches allowance to that. I'm sorry that my camera is not capturing everything. I am deeply sorry, but I hope we understand what I'm doing. So now this former armhole is no longer needed. All right, so now on the waistline, I'm also going to measure out my waist divided by 4, and then I am going to measure out what I have from where my dart starts from. I have about 4 inches on that point. So that 4-inch mark, I'm going to jump it and continue my measurement. I'll mark my waist measurement divided by 4, and then I'll also add the 2 inches allowance that I created, and then I'm going to connect the curve. I'm sorry that my camera is not capturing that. So once that is done, I'm going to go ahead and cut everything out. We are done with the front pattern, so I'm just going to cut everything out like so, and then I'm just trying to label all my points so that I don't get confused when I'm cutting on the main fabric. So this is the center front. I'll cut 2 of that, and that's the side front. So now I forgot to take my bust dart, and this is just to tighten the bust more. So I'm taking 2 inches downwards from the bust point line, and then I'm going to connect that to the middle point at the bust point area also. So this dart is going to be going off also. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to cut it out, and then I am going to close the dart. It will snatch the bust area, make it tight, and then it will give more room to the breast area. All right, so that everything will not just be too tight. All right, so now I'm closing my bust dart. Now I'm using my masking tape to close it, to close my bust dart now. So that is that about the front piece. So the next thing we are going to be doing now is to move to the back pattern. So that is that about the front piece. It's as simple as that. So let's move to the back pattern. But before we move to the back pattern, the front is coming from the top to the down part. There is no cut at the middle point of the front area. So what we're going to be doing, I took a fresh pattern paper and I measured out the length that I want. So what I have on my half length is 18 inches, so I just took away the 18 inches and marked out the full length of my dress, which is 46 inches, and then you are going to be adding allowances to that. You had about 2 inches allowance to that. Even after cutting mine, it became shorter, so I would advise that you add up to like 3 inches allowance. So by the time it is short, you are going to cut it out before turning the line. So what I'm doing now is that I'm measuring ½ inch. This is going to serve as a guide for me to place my upper middle point pattern so that I can continue my pattern from there. But I realized that it was not giving the what I wanted. It was not showing the place that was marked, so I'm just going to shift it to the upper part, and I'm going to use the upper part as the guide. So I'm just marking ½ inch at this upper part area, and then I'm going to draw a straight line. So this is what is going to guide me. This is what is going to guide me in cutting my front pattern. So I'm just going to, mask it. I'm going to sellotape this area to that ½ inch mark. This is just serving as a guide. So what you are going to do is that you are going to measure what you have at that point, what you have from that point to that point, and that's what you are going to mark all the way down. So that is the middle part of the front panel all the way to the length. So you are just going to draw that straight line, and then you are going to cut it out. So this will serve as the middle part of the front area. So it just comes from the neckline downwards. There is no cut at the middle side, so that is why we have to cut another pattern for it. So I realized that the waist is quite long because we are not joining anything. So what I did was that I marked my actual waist of 16.5. I added like ½ inch, that ½ inch that we took away, so I added it. So I just measured that out from the upper pattern. So I marked that about 17 inches, and I just cut it out. So I've taken out the excess I'm so sorry, I've taken out the excess that is at the upper part like that. So I'm then going to sellotape this side. So this is what we are going to be using to cut our actual fabric. If you notice what is on the thumbnail, if you see it very well, the middle part does not have any joining. So this is how we are going to cut it on our fabric. So this middle part will be on fold. So I'm just trying to, you see, this is the shortage that I had only ½ inch remaining, and unfortunately when I was cutting it on my fabric, I forgot to add the extra allowance also. So when you are doing yours, take note of this. So I'm just trying to check out the length. So the length was 46. I only had about ½ inch. So placing the side on it, this is how it is going to be looking. So I hope we understand now. So once all of this is done, let's move straight to the back. So for the back, I'm already cutting. I just marked out my neck width of 3 inches and neck depth of 1 inch, and then I want to just connect it with a curve. Once that is done, I'm going to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2 plus ½ inch, just as we did it for the front. And then I'm going to mark a shoulder slope of 1 inch, and then I'll connect that to my neck width point. So next thing I'm going to be doing is to mark my armhole depth, which is also going to serve as my chest line measurement. All right, so I'm just trying to make sure that it is accurate. So that's my chest line. So once that is done, I'm going to mark my waist measurement. There is no paparazzi for the back, it's just a normal back. So my waist measurement plus the allowance that I want to add. So that's what I'm marking now, and I'm going to draw that into a straight line also. So that's the waistline. So once that is done, I noticed that I was supposed to take my zip allowance at that side before taking all my measurements. So what I'm going to do now is to mark my zip bulge. I went in by 1 inch on the waist area, and I'm just going to connect it like so. So once that is done, that point is going to be cut off. This shaded part is going to be cut off. So from that new line, I'm marking my 1.5 inch zip allowance. So I've just marked 1.5 inch zip allowance, and I'm going to draw a straight line. So the first measurement is just going to be discarded. All right, so that's my zip allowance. Let me change my marker so that it can be it won't be confusing. So now from the zip allowance point, I'm going to mark my neck width of 3 inches and neck depth of 1 inch. I'm connecting that with a curve, and from that zip allowance I'm going to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2 plus half inch. So we have a new shoulder line. All right, I just did this so that you can understand, and then I'll take my shoulder slope. So we are working with the green marker now, so I'm going to measure my armhole depth and connect it. I'll look for the midpoint and draw the curve. But before drawing the curve, I'm going to mark out my bust measurement divided by 4. That will be on that chest line area. So but before then, I wanted to mark out my dart. So I took from the point where the zip allowance starts from, I took 5 inches. My bust point is 4.5, but I added half inch and I took 5 inches, and then I'm just going to connect that like that. So that's for my dart. Then the next thing I'm going to do is to mark out my bust measurement divided by 4. Once I've marked out the point, I'm going to draw my armhole curve. So once I'm done drawing my armhole curve, I'm going to add the allowance that I'm going to be using, which is 2 inches allowance. So now I'm just extending the line. So now on the waistline, I am going to mark out my waist divided by 4. I'm going to start my measurement from where my zip allowance stops, and I am going to jump the dart, and then I'll just mark it out just as we did for the front, and then I'm going to connect it like that. And once this is done, I am going to cut it all out. Don't forget that we are working with the green line, so I'm going to cut it all out now. And then I'm also cutting out the zip bulge that I created. So this is the back part. You can also make your back part a shoulder dart if you want. So now for the down part, I am going to be cutting on the main fabric. So what I've done is that I took out what I have for my half length, and then I'm marking out the length of my gown plus the allowance that I want to leave. All right, so that is what I'm doing. I'm marking out the length of the gown plus the allowance that I want to leave, and once that is done, I am just going to cut it out like that before shaping it out. So the next thing I'm going to do is to start shaping it out. Because this is the back panel, don't forget we took a zip bulge at the upper part, so I went in by 1 inch again for the zip bulge, and then I am going to just connect that. And for my hip line, I used 8.5 inches for the hip line, and I am drawing out my hip line now. I always measure the hip line on my client's body. You can also do that. So that was what I was doing, and you can also use 8.5, 8 inches to 9 inches, 8 inches to 10 inches thereabouts. So after marking my zip bulge, I went ahead to mark my zip allowance of 1.5 inches also on this side, because I am going to be turning everything with lining. So by the time I turn it with lining, the zip allowance is going to be remaining something like 1 inch. All right, so I've gone ahead to cut out my zip bulge, and I'm opening that point up, and then I'm going to place notches at the zip allowance. So from the zip allowance, I'm going to mark my waist measurement divided by 4 plus 2 inches allowance, so which I've done now. And then I'm also going to mark out my hip measurement divided by 4 plus 2 inches allowance, so which I'm going to be doing now. So from the zip allowance line, so plus 2 inches allowance, and then I'm going to connect that with a curve. And then on the down part, I'm sorry that my camera is not getting there. On the down part, I am going to measure whatever I have on the hip and just deduct 1.5 inches from that, so that the down part can be a little bit pencil. You can do 1 inch, 1.5 or 2 inches. 1.5 inches is enough for my client because she's on a plus size and I don't want it to be too tight. So once that is done, I am just going to cut it all out. So now my camera is showing it now. So I'm marking out the wrong side, and for the front I am going to just place the back on another fabric that is folded into two, and I'm going to remove the zip allowance, as you can see, and I am just going to trace it out like that. Just going to use the back to trace out the front. I'm just going to use the back to trace out the front, and I'll remove the back. I'll work on the front now. So because the front side, we've already cut the center front, so we are going to deduct that center front from this one. So I used my bust pan measurement divided by 2 plus ½ inch, which gave me 5 inches. So that is what I measured, and I connected that to a straight line, and I'm going to be cutting it out. So that center is going to be out. It's not part of what we are working with. So this is our side front now. So this is what we are going to be working with. So don't forget, we've already cut out the center front. It came from the top all the way down. All right, so that is how it's going to be. So I'm going to cut out all the pattern now and cut all the lining for it, and I'll show you the sewing tutorial. So I've done that, and I placed interfacing. I press interfacing on all of it. So my next video is going to be the sewing tutorial. If this was helpful, kindly give it a like, share and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out anytime I upload the next video. That's the sewing video. So now let's work on the peplum. I've already folded my fabric into 4, and I'm trying to fold this perfectly into 4. So now let's do some calculation. The peplum is a half peplum, so my waist divided by 2 is 19 inches, and then the peplum got to the side in front, to the side front in front. So what I'm going to do is to take one part of the side front and measure what I have there. On this side front I have about 7 inches, but to be on a safe side I just removed like ½ inch, and I'm working with 6.5 inches. So 6.5 inches on the right and 6.5 inches on the left, which is 2 side fronts, is going to give me 13 inches. So I added 19 plus 13 inches, and that gave me 32 inches, and I divided the 32 inches by 6.28, and that gave me 5. So the circumference that we are going to be taking is going to be 5 inches all around. Now for the length of the peplum, the blouse length is 25. You are going to deduct your half length, which is 16 inches, so that is going to give you 8.5 plus seam allowance. All right, that was what I used 9 inches. So now after, I'm going to be marking out 5 inches for the circumference of the mouth, the circumference that will be joined to the waistline. Sorry to say, don't mind me. So after marking out the 5 inches, I'll go ahead and measure out the length of the peplum of 9 inches so that it can be accurate. I'll take it from the top, measure what I have, and that is what I am going to take all the way around. All right, so once this is done, I am going to cut it out. So I am going to use this same fabric to cut out the lining for the peplum, because it's a peplum, it can be opening, and the lining I did not get the exact shade, so I'm going to be using the same fabric to cut out the lining. Tell me in the comment section if this was helpful. Till I see you in the sewing video, I love you and I care. Bye.